Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. Thank you, delegates and panelists, for joining this session before time. My name is Megha Iyer, Associate Editor of EPR Magazine, and we welcome you to an interactive power talk on accelerating power plants performance. I welcome Mr. Nitish.
Thank you, Megha. As of January 2022, India has a total of thermal installed capacity of 235 gigawatts, with coal accounting for 51.6% of thermal power and the balance coming from lignite, diesel, and gas. In India, the private sector generates 48.5% of the country's thermal power, while states and central government generates 26.7% and 24.9% respectively. The Indian power sector is undergoing substantial upheaval, which has changed the industry's outlook. The future of the power business in India is bright, and continuous economic expansion is driving electrical consumption. The Indian government's emphasis on achieving power for all has hastened capacity addition in the country. On this note, EPR Magazine, as part of its Power Talk, has organized this live interaction on accelerating power plants performance. For this webinar, energy leaders, power producers, and power plant managers will discuss the government's push to increase efficiency in the performance of power plants in India. We will also discuss the advantages, challenges, and opportunities for implementing technologies to enhance power plants' efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege for me to introduce you our today's distinguished speakers, Mr. Sanjeev Prasad, Vice President and Plant Head for Power and Utilities, Reliance Industries Limited, DMD, Mr. Bharat Sharma, Assistant Vice President, Marketing Division, PTC India Limited, Mr. Akilur Rahman, Chief Technology Officer, Hitachi Energy, Mr. Vinit Priyadarshi, Account Manager, Operating Asset Solutions Portfolio, Black & Veitch. I invite Ms. Megha Iyer to join us for this session.
Thank you, Nitish. Mr. Bharat, I would like to start with you. Almost 108 of 173 thermal power plants have critically low level of coal stock. How do you view the mining and supply chain challenges related to coal for thermal power plants are going to hit our economy in the coming months?
I think you have raised very well issue regarding the availability of coal. Availability of coal is presently definitely a big challenge. I think government of India is taking several steps to rationalize the coal, and then Coal India Limited has taken few steps to increase the production. Railways has also taken a lot of steps to help rationalize the coal, but definitely going forward, as I have highlighted in my presentation also, in case those steps are not enough and our demand continue to grow, and because of this supply bottlenecks, there are challenges in generation, then definitely we may see some hit on our economies.
Thank you, Mr. Bharat, for explaining us the challenges that will impact our economy in the coming years. Mr. Sanjeev, how is this low coal stock at plant level impacting the power utilities? And according to you, what's our way out from this catch-22 situation in assuring adequate power supply to meet the current demand?
I have understood till now of this coal crisis is it's more of a sort of a payment issue and then less of an actual availability issue. Yes, there was a coal crisis in the international market around March, April. The prices had gone up considerably. Markets have softened now. Currently, we are at around $9 per million BTU against around $12 per million BTU, the price that was floating around mid-April or so. So the prices have softened. So imported coal is available. Government has, I understand, allowed import of coal. We as an operator are dependent on imported coal, so we are not directly affected by that. Yes, the other things on supply chain that are affecting things are like people have entered into certain long-term agreements. It is in terms of transportation. The fuel prices have increased, so there is less and less availability of trucks and dumpers for movement of that. We are facing that. You can see all around that is a problem that's there. Okay, so that is basically fuel price rise in terms of diesel prices, which perhaps somebody had not thought of to that extent, and they have gone into some long-term agreements, and now people are looking for some reasons. That is the way I understand more operators may be facing a similar issue. As far as Indian coal is concerned, yes, there is movement. As Mr. Vinit rightly told, there is a movement of coal that has been arranged through trains by the government. Yes, I'm not aware exactly of as to if there is any problem in the mining sector or any problem in mining by Coal India Limited that may affect things. But definitely imported coal availability that was constrained 1.5 months ago is not constrained to that extent.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev, for your comments. Mr. Vineet, I'm sure you must have something to add to what Mr. Sanjeev has just explained about the present coal situation in India.
Yeah, I think Mr. Sanjeev and Mr. Bharat has given their perspective. Just wanted to add a few things here. We see the coal availability being more or less a perennial challenge in this country. Like if you look at these 1 years, sometimes the stocks have improved, sometimes the stocks for most of the coal plants have depleted, and almost everyone has pointed fingers onto Coal India Limited. And then there are definitely issues in terms of the productivity of these mines. Coal India Limited has less of automation in their mines, and these days I think especially the present government is pushing a lot of pressure or putting a lot of pressure onto them to automate their mines. So hopefully with these actions, we expect the coal mines productions to go up. The other challenge is on the supply chain part of it, which is availability of rakes. So, these days Indian Railways have cancelled many trains. Of course, it becomes a problem to a lot of passengers, but still, just to get the corridors available to quickly move the train from the mines to the stations, I think this was an urgent measure that was required to be taken by the government. So, given the extensive summer and then the power crisis that we anticipate, I think some of these measures might help us reduce this crisis for some period. But the long-term solution is always in terms of more automation in the mining sector. And just to add one point before I conclude, this is already happening. Like many MDOs, or we call mining developers and operators, especially in the private sector space, they are now very open to adapt various type of digital solutions to improve the reliability and availability of their mining infrastructure. And then they're quite futuristic in that step. So whether it is rake loading infrastructure, whether it is coal mining infrastructure, whether it is mining equipment maintenance and reliability, everywhere there are investments being made by the private MDOs. Hopefully the same thing would get translated to government companies too. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vineet, thank you so much. While you address the same, do you think that it is an unforeseen challenge, or are we vulnerable somewhere in terms of forecasting such challenging future?
I think two aspects here. One is the demand forecast that we have made for coal capacity addition, and then we expected that the mining business would also follow it. So there was actions taken by the government to denationalize the Mining Act, and then they've invited private parties. But we all know what happened afterwards. It was one of the major scams of all time. But now I think in the current scenario, the situation is once again getting more streamlined, as I said, with certain restructuring happening at the governmental level, like the mining and the power fall under a single portfolio. So many of these tussles between the mining company and the power company, I think they are waning away. So hopefully, I think the situation would improve. The problem was definitely not at all unforeseen. So the problem, we know it is existing in the sector. It's just the preparedness that probably got delayed because of, as I said, lack of capital infusion in the mining sector. With CIL now being partly offloaded in terms of public participation in its equity, we expect certain innovation to come from their side. And then you see they are the monopoly. Mostly 90% of the production is held by them. So with the denationalization and more private participation, we expect the situation to improve.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vineet, for your comments. Mr. Akhilur, what are your views on it? Can you please share what do you think about the entire situation?
Listening to Sanjeev and Vineet, so the problems are in different, I would say, areas, whether it is production of the coal. And as Vinit said rightly, I think the automation level in the mines are not good enough. And Sanjeev talked about actually availability was there, but it's all about the supply chain, getting the coal to the plant, and that's again because of the oil price, the dumpers, the vehicles, they were not available. So these are multiple areas, challenges. What I think the technology is there to actually sort of predict this kind of situation. I mean, I talked about and Vinit talked about how we are using AI ML to predict the life of the asset, and also the any malfunction, failure of the asset. This can be also done in a very holistic way, that you have the data about the entire chain of the power production, conventional power production, right from the coal mines to the vehicle transporting the coal, and also having the impact of the vehicles not being available or whatever, or during pandemic. So all these things can be definitely modeled, simulated in real time. They can be also analyzed to predict this kind of situation, and then also provide advisory to the respective departments or companies. I think this is definitely possible. So in power system, for example, we have this kind of networked system and analysis done, which is in real time. So I'm sure this is also possible in real time, looking at what might happen if, let's say the coal, is not getting delivered to the plants because of the production or because of the supply chain, the vehicles not available, or even, let's say, when you are importing coal, the rupee value and all those. So that can also impact. So I think all these things can be definitely modeled and analyzed. I would say, maybe government can think of something, especially in critical infrastructure, they should look at a system of modeling, analysis, and also impact analysis. If something is happening, create the scenarios and then do this.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Rahman. That makes really sense, and a very intelligent observation as well. So, Mr. Sharma, my question is to you that in your submission, you mentioned about improvement in the pricing rates. If this condition prevails, probably we are talking about a little kind of blackout situation, which can happen in a couple of states. Will it impact the pricing of available power?
Definitely, I think there is no doubt about it. And if the continue to remain the same, and in case mercury remains high above maybe 44, 45 in the northern region, in western part of the country, and we will see a sharp increase in the demand, then definitely this scenario can come, and we will, until if this price are not kept up by the CRC, we would have seen a 20 rupees also. So definitely there is no chance of a decrease in price if the scenario remains the same.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. You are talking about a per unit 20 rupees. Mr. Vinit.
Yes.
Mr. Vinit, what will be the cascading impact of that?
So let's see the issue here. DISCOMs, they are reeling under tremendous NPAs, and they have no fund to really pay. The other day we heard that government is once again looking for another scheme to revitalize some of the DISCOMs, provided they agree to certain more stringent terms of austerity. So the idea, the problem is essentially getting cascaded already to some extent. It will get worsened actually if the power price goes up to something like 10, 12 rupees or say 20 rupees like that. I think one problem that I could very well see here is or rather maybe an opportunity too, that some of the gas plants of late, we've been recently hearing from the investors community that they are looking very seriously about reviving the stranded gas capacity in the country, which is almost 24 gigawatt. So at a certain price level, gas plant would probably become very competitive in the merit order, and they might displace some of the coal power in the short term. The other thing here is the massive capacity addition of renewables that is also going to, I would say, flatten some of the peaks in the curve. But overall, you can't substitute power in this country. Coal, as far as the power supply is concerned in this country. So the consumers will have to bear the brunt, mostly the retail consumers who can't afford to pay the power at 9 rupees or 10 rupees or 12 rupees price. That's my view.
Yeah, it is. It's quite challenging, and it's too early, I think, to assess the impact. Mr. Sanjeev, we are running short of time and we are at the verge of closing the session. So can I request you to give a closing statement for the session?
Yeah, thanks. It was a nice absorbing session that was there, wide-ranging views that got into it. I got a lot to learn in terms of what I never knew. I've come to know of lot many things out of this session. Yes, definitely the topic that you raised at the end in terms of a power crisis or a blackout that we may be looking at. Yes, we may not be going for a blackout, but yes, the situation is not good. And one thing that I have been made to learn through my life is happens to be nothing comes for free. If you are getting something free today, you'll have to pay for it tomorrow. And we have remained silent on it. And there is no such law in our country which stops these political parties from offering things for free. So if you are offering things for free at the one end, at some other end, you'll have to pay for it. So that is where the entire balance lies. If you are paying for it, nothing will come to standstill. Things will start working. Yes, that has to go and things have to improve. And it was very nice interacting and meeting EPR team the second time. I do not remember the period or the last time I met. Nice. It was nicely organized. Thanks to my co-participants, Mr. Vineet, Mr. Akilur, Mr. Bharat, and thanks to Nitish, Megha, and you for the nice organized panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was our privilege to host each one of you. We really understand. I think Mr. Bharat still want to add something. He was raising his hand. We really understand that, we are running short of time. Mr. Bharat, is something burning, then you can definitely put up.
No. That's all. I think it was as concluded by Mr. Prasad perfectly. So the session was quite enriching, and I thanks to your team and to my fellow panelists for this opportunity. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. I request Nitish to take it forward.
Thank you, panelists, for sharing your valuable thoughts on accelerating power plants' performance. We hope you all have enjoyed the session. Before wrapping up the session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Akilur Rahman, Mr. Sanjeev Prasad, Mr. Bharat Sharma, and Mr. Vineet Priyadarshi. I would also like to thank our editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking up this initiative. To get more updates from EPR Magazine, you can follow our social media pages. Also, our application is available on Google Play and App Store for enhanced reading. With this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. I request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Thank you and goodbye.